tech stagnation is that when something does happen, we don't even know how to process it. So, I think Bitcoin was a big invention, whether it was good or bad, but it was a pretty big deal, and it was systematically underestimated. We're in a world where nothing big ever happens, and so we have no way of processing it when something pretty big happens. The internet was pretty big in '99. Bitcoin was moderately big. The internet was really big. Bitcoin was moderately big, and I'd say passing the Turing test is really big. It's on the same scale as the internet.
There you have billionaire Peter Thiel. He's weighing in on Bitcoin versus the internet and saying Bitcoin's moderately big and comparing to the internet, and we're still in this run-up mania phase. So we are still early. If you don't get it, what's going on, and you're not into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you might miss the boat. And with that, what's happening to Crypto Crew? Sean's coming back at you, another cryptocurrency video. Before we get started, check us out at bitcoinbros101.com. We have learning for you, social links. You can join our premium Patreon. Also, a couple beginners books. Getting started with Bitcoin and Crypto Ultimate Beginner's Guide and Technical Analysis 101. All the chart setups you need to look for when you're going through your trading journey. Getting straight into it, the current time is recording. Bitcoin is trading around 60,000. So, what do we see? What do we anticipate? We see Bitcoin did make a rally up. If we zoom into this price action, we see that we did come from the lows of 52.6 and hit our head multiple times on this bull market support band. So is this a bearish indication? Are we going to get a rejection and see lower lows? We probably won't see it today. Potentially we might, but we want to stay above this green 20 moving average, get back above this red line here and back into this bull market support band. So we're bullish here from this 20 moving average, need to get back over this 200, need to get back through the bull market support band. But right now, looking from this low here, from the candle body close to this low here, this could be somewhat of a double bottom pattern that we could be seeing. Are we going to double bottom our way out of this and come back up to this previous resistance level, zooming out on the price chart? Are we going to come back up towards the $68,000, or are we going to come back down and put in a lower low and trend towards the mid 40s? Right now is a very pivotal moment for Bitcoin, and you got to be patient. Zooming out on the charts, look at these blue lines. These are the halvings, halving of 2016, halving of 2020, and the halving of this year. Current time, we just broke 60,000. Will Bitcoin get back above and hold? So what are we looking at? So we're looking at the previous high compared to the halving and looking at some dates. So let's draw some horizontal lines here from our previous high in 2013. And let's draw another one from 2017. And then we already have this white line drawn from 2021. So how long did it take from the halving until we got above this comfortably? And can we compare that to where we are present day? So if we get out our date range tool, we'll see from the halving of 2016 until we got above this comfortably, it took about, let's see, when we broke above it, it took about 287 days before we broke above this previous all-time high and didn't look back. So let's look from the 2020 halving and see if we see anything different. When we broke above the purple line here, 217 days. So we got 287 and 217. So let's see where we are present day. So right now at the current time it's recording, we're in the middle of September, and right now since the halving, that's just 154 days. So we did get a decrease from 287 to 217, about a 70-day decrease. So we take 70 days off of this, that puts us right where we are right now. So will we get a decrease, or will we have to wait till we get over that 200-day mark before we get back above that previous high? Time is a virtue, but that's what we see. Check out that Bitcoin MVRV Z-score. This details out tops and bottoms. Should have been buying in the green way back. You could have been accumulating from July of 22 all the way till January of 23, because this is when we've seen that first rally. Then we've seen a cool off. We haven't got back up towards this red box yet. This can be found on lookintobitcoin.com. These are some tool sets you need to utilize for this upcoming bull cycle. And with the FOMC meeting coming up this week, don't expect immediate relief from the Federal Reserve's first rate cut in the years. The Fed is about to cut rates for the first time in 4 years. For consumers strained by high borrowing costs, this policy shift is welcome news, although one rate cut won't deliver immediate relief. So we have this FOMC meeting coming in a little over 3 days. So what can we anticipate? Let's hear from Tom Lee and see what his take is for this upcoming rate cut.
I mean, I think if viewers are sort of confused, I think that's what the next 8 weeks are going to be like into election day. I think it's a very challenging period because no one can have conviction until they really know who's in the White House. But there are some positive sort of supports coming into play, and next week is the Fed meeting. We know the Fed is going to make some cuts, and with the inflation data being supportive and the labor markets needing some support, I think it's going to give the market some confidence. So I think we do kind of trade well into that meeting and maybe even the week or two after.
There's Tom Lee from Fundstrat, but what do we anticipate as far as the rate cut goes? Right now, it's 50-50 down the middle, saying that we get 25% basis point cut or a 50 basis point cut. What are we going to see? We'll look at this before this video is out, so make sure you watch this to the end. So recession-wary investors are debating whether a 50 basis point interest rate cut would reassure or unsettle markets. I think there's one thing to be for certain is that there's going to be some volatility this week, definitely in markets. To the up or downside, time will definitely tell, but we're going to see some moves in the markets. Looking at Bitcoin once again, we have the Fed rates below, and you can sort of see what the Bitcoin price action does once the cuts started to happen. I guess the best example will be back in 2019 when they cut from about 2.25 down to 0, and we had this mid-cycle peak in the bear market and then came back down, and this was basically from the pandemic dump and then blasted off to the races once we hit 0. So the bigger question is, how far down is the Fed going to cut? So right now we're at 5.25. If we come down 50 basis points, that'll take us to 4.75. So 25 or 50 basis points, that's going to be not the end of the cutting. And the bigger question is, how much cutting can we actually see? Well, we have an update from Jurian Timmer. He's weighing in on this, and he's given his take on what he sees in the markets.
Does your view change, or will the market move, whether it's a 50 or a 25, materially?
It doesn't really matter, I don't think. What matters is where the Fed ends up. And is this a Greenspan-like giving back of rate hikes, which is what we saw in 95? That was, of course, the most coveted soft landing scenario. Or are we, heading into a recession and the Fed has to embark on a full easing cycle? Obviously, that makes a big difference for earnings. So far, the evidence shows that it is a soft landing. If you look at the excess labor demand, of course, from the pandemic, we went from 3% excess demand to now normalized. So if the Fed can stabilize the boat here, it will have, really threaded the needle. You've taken the excesses out of the economy while inflation is much closer to its target, 2.6 for the core PCE, 3.2 for core CPI. And in that scenario, a neutral rate, in my view, is around 3.5, 4, which gives the Fed at least 6 rate cuts. And whether it gets there 6 times 25 or 3 times 50, doesn't really matter in my view, as long as the economy soft lands, which so far it seems to be doing.
Right. Sarah just